welcome to the Northwest Treatment Vidcast.
Hello, everybody. Today we have special guests that I'm going to let themselves introduce us.
Hello, my name is Baroness Juliana de la Serra.
And I am Her Ladyship Helena Zancani. We participate in a very silly game on the weekends where we pretend to be in Middle Ages or medieval times. In real life, my name is Alana, and I work for Intel as an administrative assistant.
And I am Whitney. I also work for Intel as an administrative assistant. So we see a lot of technology in our lives, both at home and at work. In particular, this game, as we refer to it, that we play is the Middle Ages as it was meant to be.
Slightly less plague.
Less plague, less racism, we're much more open. And we really like to make a place where everyone is welcome to come and participate. So the group that we're referring to is called the Society for Creative Anachronism. The creative is emphasized in the various things that we just referred to.
That's wonderful. Thank you guys for joining us. The first question we like to ask is, how would you describe your career or background?
I have a bachelor's in biology with an emphasis in genetics. I don't work in my field at all. I have worked professionally in the banking industry, in utilities, and now I have moved into the high-tech industry, and I support basically a bunch of computer geeks doing their thing professionally, but they make some amazing products that are used all over the world. So.
And I have an administrative assistance degree in computer administration. Also do not actually work in my field, just adjacent to it. And I have 20 years of experience working in call centers, so just a lot of mental damage.
I imagine that's not always the easiest job, having to field tech call center calls.
It's, the best part is people can't see your face, and the worst part is because they can't see your face, it tends to dehumanize you.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say customer-facing customer service is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. And we've both had our unfair share of it, I would say. So, yeah, but I love my job now. It's easily the best job that I think I've ever had.
Yes.
And, you know, when COVID started, they didn't even hitch in their ability to process forward, and they're very forward thinking and taking care of not only their employees' health physically, but also mentally. So we're really appreciative of that.
That must have made things a little bit easier when COVID hit.
Oh yeah.
It did. It was a little crazy, as I'm sure just about every business was, when we suddenly all had to go, okay, who has to be here and who can we send home and work from there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and then
For
how
sure.
long have you guys both been involved with the SCA?
I've been in the SCA since I was 11. My mother got together with my stepdad, whose name is Keith, and he's fantastic. And he said, so there's this thing I do on the weekends, and he explained it to her. And then she looked at her 11-year-old daughter and said, do you want to go camping on the weekends? And I said, no. And she said, you get dressed as a princess. And then she had to go out to the car and get me back in because it wasn't right now. And so, yeah, I've been doing SCA since I was 11. I've been in 4 different kingdoms, 5 different states.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I started the SCA in 2005. I was actually introduced by my then brother-in-law. And he introduced me to a flavor of the SCA that was very pirate-centric. And it was wild. It was a lot of fun. For 20 to 30-year-olds that don't have a lot of family, it is the place to be. And I mean, there are gads of different kinds of people that participate still in the pirate play. And we just sort of moved laterally.
Yeah,
Sure.
with a gentle push.
We moved with a gentle push from my now boyfriend into what we consider now the mainstream SCA, which is a little bit more history centric than the pirate scene. So I have only lived in one kingdom, the one that we are currently in.
The best kingdom.
The best kingdom. So Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and a little bit of Southern Canada is called Ontario, which I am told in Irish. Is it Irish?
I think it was Irish Gaelic.
Irish Gaelic means home.
It was like,
or maybe our land.
Yeah, I think it was our land.
Okay. Anyway,
the land.
But our kingdom is one of the largest geographic kingdoms in the whole world. This hobby is actually worldwide. There are now, I believe, 20 total kingdoms.
21
total kingdoms throughout the world. As it gets bigger, more kingdoms are created. The United States, I believe, has 16 or 17 of the 21 kingdoms. And then there are also kingdoms in Australia,
Japan, mainland Europe.
Yep, mainland Europe. And then
Canada.
Well, yes, obviously.
That's not the US.
You're right. I'm sorry. North America. And then each kingdom is broken down into smaller organizational units that are known as either principalities, baronies, or shires, depending on the population of people within them that play our game.
And you may have noticed that when Ana introduced herself, she introduced herself as Baroness Ana. She is currently the Baroness of our local barony.
Not for very long, though. Like in 3 or 4 days, my heirs will take over, and then I can take the hat off.
Well, definitely sounds very involved, and it's not just a small thing. It's a lot of time and effort and money and energy and people that go into this.
Fun.
And when my favorite quote about the SCA is the hobby where you collect hobbies. And I always tell people if they want to get started in the SCA, you can sink a lot of money into it. I know because I have done that. You can also grab a 4-man pop-up tent, cut the elastic off a pair of black sweatpants, throw a tunic over it, and you're good.
Yeah.
I think the first event I ever went to, I ate basically 3 pounds of jerky we made at home and nothing else. So do not be put off by the idea that you're going to have to immediately have giant pavilions and your own horses and crazy stuff. Just come and have fun.
Yes.
Hit people with sticks, learn to throw axes, learn to do embroidery, do something fun. Do what you want to do.
Yep. So when Helena refers to the hobby that has many hobbies, when I first started in the SCA, I did not consider myself artistic in the least.
She was very
very science math brained. Science degree, worked in banks, I was very technical oriented. And since I began in the SCA, I started tailoring my own clothing. I make hats. I paint silk. I make a ton of banners, like period style banners are my jam. God, what else do I do? I heavy fight. When we say heavy fight, what we mean is heavy armored combat. So when you think of a typical knight from the Middle Ages, that's what they're aiming for. They don't necessarily wear all of that armor, but the combat is tailored after that style. So
Sure.
Takes all the fun out of it.
That's right. So tell them about the 5 of your favorite hobbies that you do.
Oh gosh. Okay, 5 of my favorite SCA hobbies. I do a lot of embroidery. I have 3 embroidery projects about my room right now.
Go on.
I also make hats and veils. I'm actually very much focused on hand sewing and learning what kind of stitches and what kind of patterning would have been used during the medieval era, because it is different than what we use now. My favorite random fact is that there's a stitch called a herringbone. We use it today as an invisible seam when you are hemming up your pants. Now reverse that and put it on the outside of the garment in really brightly colored thread, and they used it back then. It was used as a decorative stitch. So I also do calligraphy. I also do illumination, which is painting charters and scrolls, and I'm learning bookbinding.
Ooh.
Wow.
seriously, the hobby that you collect hobbies. I can't stop. I can't stop.
I love historical sewing. Like that's one of my things that I always am researching. And like
Yes!
Herringbone one is the new one I just learned about. And I'm like, I really want to try doing it now.
Yes, it's really fun. It's surprisingly easy, but it looks super complicated. If you want to make it more complicated, do two of them. Do one set and then do another set in a different color thread.
Yeah, like the St. Brigida's hats.
Yes,
that's how they're made. Is that they're two halves? Or anyway, sorry, I can geek out about this a lot.
No, so can we, obviously, yeah.
So within your professions, like how, both in like the SCA and also within like your actual real world professions, like what things come up with like when it comes to mental health or substance use issues?
So stress. Stress is a big thing. We work in very high-tech fields. Everything is changing constantly, and we usually find out about it about 24 hours after it is already changed.
Yep.
So you don't just hit the ground running, you hit the ground running and hope you don't crash. It's a little insane, and it's still a great job, but it's very fast-paced. We tend to work with very intellectual people, very science-minded people who don't really understand please and thank you all that well, which is fine. That's the communication style, but it does take a moment for you to be like, oh, it's fine. They don't hate me. They just really need this thing now. In my personal, in the SCA, I actually don't deal with a lot of stress, which is why I do it. It's slow-paced. There's much less stress. It's just really hanging out with your friends and wearing funny clothing while you do it. COVID, if we're allowed to say that. I apologize if this gets demonetized because of YouTube, but COVID has definitely added a lot of stress. We have 2 minor children in the house and one who is going to college and
one who's major.
one major child. That's our boyfriend, no joking. Suddenly being like, we're having spring break. Oh, spring break's coming in a week early. Also, it's going to be a week longer. Never mind, no more school.
Never mind, it's going to be 9 months longer. It'll be fine.
That was a huge stressor.
A huge stress, yeah.
And both the kids felt it. We got some very interesting interactions going on. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of mental health challenges. I'm an introvert. I know you can't tell because I talk a lot, but I am. So the whole concept of you have to stay inside and you can't spend time with people, I was like, really?
She was great. I was having a problem.
There were a couple breakdowns.
Just a couple.
There's some crying.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, the whole idea of being trapped inside and not having that social outlet, especially because during this time of year is when our SCA season is really in peak.
Sure.
During a regular year, we would literally be out of the house at an event
every other weekend.
3 out of 4 weekends per month. I mean, we're going all the time, and that the lack of that has been a really strange change in sort of the
your yearly cycle. It completely it's you have a cycle in your year of these are the things I do during these seasons, and
right.
The thing we do during this season was gone.
I think Helena really touched on the high tech stress. I need this information yesterday. We also, in particular, work in a cash cow portion of our job, which is manufacturing of our products. And so they have very definitive, very precise timing for the way production works. And so when things don't work correctly or when production quotas are not met, things can get real stressful real fast.
It can get tense.
And so I don't think that I necessarily see any issue at work or with coworkers with regards to substance abuse specifically, but I do have to say one of the things that our employer is exceptional at is work-life balance.
Oh, good.
Yes, they have very little problem with people taking time off when they need it. They have amazing benefits, and we still are one of the only industries in the country that earn things like sabbaticals. And
Wow.
yeah, like I'm coming up on my first one here in like 3 months, and I'm super excited because I'm not even really sure what I'm going to do with myself, to be perfectly honest.
I would say that comparing this job, because Ana has worked at Intel for almost 4 years. 5 years.
5.
Yeah, about 5 years. I have just hit my 2-year mark. So I sort of have a more recent memory of less progressive employers. And I've had some amazingly good employers in call centers, and I've had some that were not. I would say, especially when it comes to substance abuse, you see that more when you are in an employment situation where you are undervalued, where you feel like and are treated like a cog in the machine. You definitely see alcohol abuse, you see drug abuse, you also see non-prescription abuse, like the amount of caffeine that people will consume in extremely unhealthy amounts. Like you would see people who would grab a Red Bull, put a couple of caffeine pills, break them up, put them in, shake it up, and shoot it. And that would get them through their day. So
Yeah.
No.
we are lucky we don't have to deal with that because we're in such a good job now, but I've definitely seen that in the past.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't really see substance abuse actually being particularly an issue within the SCA either.
Yeah,
I mean, part of the SCA culture is in the evenings when all the kids have gone to bed, often the adults will gather around fireplaces. They will sing, they will do crafts, they will
drink,
kibitz, but there's almost always alcohol involved. I have seen that taken to an 11, but I don't think that I can say that I often see it being an abusive problem. Having said that, I also don't know every individual that is necessarily sitting around that fire. So I don't know, their particular personal histories. I have heard individuals discuss having challenges about being non-drinking individuals for whatever their reason, and feeling like that has been a little bit of a barrier to their participation.
So, but I actually haven't experienced that. I will occasionally drink alcohol, but by occasionally I mean an apple cider every few months. I generally don't like the taste of alcohol. It's not a moral thing. It's a flavor thing. And yeah, there's one of the reasons there's so much alcohol available in the SCA is because we have a fantastic brewing culture. We have people who are learning how to brew beer and mead and ale and cider. And let me tell you, when you make something, you're proud of it and you want other people to try it. Mm-hmm. So I've definitely had alcohol very enthusiastically offered to me. I really haven't had any problems with just saying, no thanks, I don't really drink. And they're like, oh, but I made this. I'm like, that's great. I hate alcohol, so I won't be a good taster.
And they're like, oh, okay, where's your husband?
Yeah. So I will say that there is definitely a prevalence of alcohol at night, not really during the day. Mm-hmm. It's very much it's nighttime, the kids are asleep, yay, we can actually drink now. But I haven't really had a problem with being a non-drinker and feeling excluded in any way.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So what are 3 things that you guys would like to make sure to share with our audience?
I think part of the reason that we really wanted to talk with you today was to express the idea that you don't have to be a kid to play. And I firmly believe that part of my self-care and mental health is wrapped up in the idea of letting my hair down. Ironically, I put it up when I go play, but I put it in a cap anyway. But feeling comfortable, geeking out, whatever your flavor is. It can be medieval reenactment, it can be Civil War reenactment, it can be tabletop D&D, it can be MMORPGs, but we're adults, but it doesn't have to be all business all the time. And allowing yourself to be removed from some of those responsibilities for a minute, I think is some of the best self-care that you can give yourself.
I think for me, the thing I would want to say is we as a society move very quickly. We consume culture very quickly. We consume information very quickly. We contact each other very quickly. Everything in our life has been exponentially sped up. And that's not a bad thing. But I don't think we realize how much of a stressor that can be on your day-to-day life. So one of the things I love about being part of the SCA is having a weekend where I just go away, put up a tent, and I can just sit there. And if I'm in my house, I can't. I can't just sit down and do nothing. And maybe 3 minutes tops before I'm like, I have to change the laundry and I need to go check Facebook and it doesn't have to be things I hate. It can be things I really enjoy doing, but I feel like I always have to do something. Mm-hmm. And when I go to an event, it's a sudden, almost positive jet lag where nothing has to be done super quickly. Everything is done sort of on a slower pace, and you just sort of enjoy your day. You go for walks, you sit down with your friends. One of my favorite parts is just sitting in front of my encampment, watching people pass by, and that's how I meet new people. Someone will be like, I love your tunic. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love your dress, and we'll start talking, and suddenly I've got a friend from Wisconsin I've never met before. So that would be the thing I would want to share with people is being fast-paced doesn't have to be a bad thing, a bad stressor, but it is a stressor. And giving yourself the leeway to slow down and just take a day of not having anything you have to do is an amazing release of pressure.
I think the third thing really is learning to be social in person again. And one of the things that has been hard about the COVID situation is we have this huge array of friends that live up and down the I-5 corridor, that live literally hundreds of miles apart, that we're used to seeing on a regular basis. And to have that sort of expansive network of people that you see face to face on a regular basis is really freeing in a way that you would never expect. But I mean, if we decided that we, wanted to drive up to Canada, we could make 2 phone calls and basically have a place to crash anytime. Mm-hmm. And the other part of it really is it's an epic exchange of information. You have hundreds of people that are interested in various little weird pockets of information, and every single one of them wants to talk to you about it. So if you want to learn the most minute, embroidery stitch from Bavaria from 1445, there's somebody that knows about it, and they are ecstatic to talk to you about it.
My favorite example of that for a long time was if you suddenly become just enraptured with the idea of making goat cheese from the 10th century, I've got a friend for that.
I know a girl.
And actually, I do have a friend specifically for that. Hi, Bob. Yeah, I think when you said about really learning to interact with people in person and be friendly with people in person, that's a weird thing about our society now. And I think this is one of those odd pullbacks from positive change, because we have become more focused on having our workplace be inclusive and be positive. I think that you can feel a lot of pressure to not exchange as much personal details and information at work, because if you have stuff in your home life that is not normal, if you are polyamorous, if you're part of a kink community, if you do Ren fairs, if you do Comic-Con, in certain workplaces, that's not going to be an acceptable conversation. So suddenly something that's a big part of your life has to be hidden from work.
Right.
And so much of our interactions, our personal interactions, are now done online, which is amazing because that means I can be friends with someone from Japan, but it also means that there isn't a face and a voice to that person. Mm-hmm. And I think that we, on the one hand, can feel much more free to just say what we think, but it also means that you may not filter the way you would if you could see that person's face and realize your foot has just gone down your gullet. So being able to have, 2, 3, 4 days of just chatting with people in person and talking with people who are much younger than you, much older than you, from a completely different political spectrum, from a completely different country. It's an amazing thing to do because you really do broaden your horizons and your scope of human interaction much more than I think any other situation.
It sounds that for you, it's been very inclusive to be able to have that.
So my family is very non-traditional. I'm polyamorous, so I have multiple romantic partners in my life. We have multiple children that I consider all of them mine. None of them are biologically mine. One of our children is non-binary. We have more people in our household who are LGBTQ plus than we have people who are cishet. So we have a very, very rainbow family in certain ways. And it's interesting to be able to talk to people that that's not their life experience. And they also equally find my lifestyle sort of almost zoo style interesting to look at. So it's great to be able to have all of those different perspectives and talk to people. And I can talk with people who are extremely conservative, who are from the opposite political spectrum. And if we're face to face, if we're chatting because we both happen to really be interested in Viking mythology, it's not a problem. And they'll usually look at my lifestyle and go, that's weird. I mean, whatever, it works for you, but that's weird. They're like, yeah, like your whole 2.5 kids thing, nah, fam. And it's fine.
When I refer to adults, I mean people that are of major age and older. And I mean, really even teens. But I would encourage people to pursue your passion. But I don't just mean in work. I mean in your life. Find the hobbies, find the fun. Don't be afraid to look for that family of people that also enjoy what you enjoy, because it's amazing how many like-minded geeks are available and willing to play the kind of game that you want to play, whether it's, vampire or Middle Ages or whatever. But look, because it's not common knowledge, and then you find it and it's amazing how big it is. And I often am like, how did I miss this for the first 20 years of my life? How did I not know this existed in my literal backyard, So look for the things that you find fun and don't be afraid to embrace them.
And I would actually add to that, if you're a teenager or you're preteen and you do not fit in with your social group, it is okay to be the weird one. I grew up in a very small, very conservative, very Christian town. None of these were terribly bad things. It was a really interesting way to grow up. But you have a different view on the world. So when someone looks at you and says, "What are you, gay?" and your response is, "I mean, maybe, I haven't really dated, so I don't know." For me, this is the right answer, and for them, this is not the right answer. So if that's you, if you are in a place where you don't feel like you can fit in, you don't feel safe to be who you are, it is okay to hide if you want to, if you feel like that is better. Don't hide who you are from you, because there is a group out there that is just as interested in mythology as you. There's a group out there who totally gets the desire to love whoever you want. If you are someone who just looks around you and thinks, this isn't right, this isn't who I am, and I feel like I'm living in a world that's separate from me, it's okay, because somewhere out there and you can usually contact them through the internet, there is someone who is going to match up with you. There's a group of people who will be like, oh my gosh, you're my fam.
You're my people.
You will find them, and you will get to live exactly how you want to and be the weird, awesome, crazy geek that you are, and everyone will find it amazing just like you do.
So one of the very last things that we do for all of our guests is that we ask them questions based upon Proust. And so the very first question I want to ask you guys is, where would you live? And actually, I would add to that, what time period would you live in?
Ooh. Oh, okay. England. Oh, I am such an Anglophile. I apologize. I love England. Okay, so this is a weird thing. I love Renaissance Europe. I love medieval history. I also really love penicillin and the availability of feminine hygiene products. So I'm still going to say now, maybe not during COVID. Maybe I'd actually go forward 100 years and see what happens.
Okay.
But not the past. I love the past, but it's scary and I would have died.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I like the past the way that we create it. I think that's my favorite. If I had to pick like specific pieces of the past, I would totally do that. But I have to agree with Helena on I definitely would want to stick with this timeline. Well, maybe not this timeline, this time frame, or forward. But I think I would thoroughly enjoy living somewhere outside the United States.
Italy.
Okay, probably Italy. But I'm also open to France and Germany, and I mean, just
She wants anywhere that has a really good museum. That's what she cares about.
So then, if you had to have a different career, what would you want to do?
Can I assume I'd be good at whatever career?
Absolutely. You would get the job.
I would want to be a costume designer.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would love to be a costume. Not only medieval clothing, because for me, this isn't a costume. This is clothing. It's something that you can wear to work in and move in, and there's no restriction to it. But also being able to design, fantasy elves and sci-fi warriors, that'd be amazing.
that'd be pretty cool. I think I would actually really like to work in the field that I studied in. Originally, my degree was to be in forensics, and these days I'm actually kind of okay with not being in law enforcement. Like, I love the science, but I think that I would be more interested in some sort of research position. I mean, like, finding the cure for Alzheimer's would be pretty rockin' in my world. So I think I would probably like to work in that field.
Don't ask her about gangrene. No.
What is your guys' least favorite word?
Bigotry.
You! I didn't say the word I'm not allowed to say on YouTube.
You are very nice.
Gosh, least favorite word. Squelch. No, I like squelch. That's what you do with mud and your toes. It's great. Gatekeeping.
Ooh, good one.
That's a good one.
And what would be your favorite word?
Inclusion, ha! Actually, no, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Be enthusiastic about your life. This is your life. As far as we know, this may be the only one we get. So just do it and love it and ignore what anyone else says. They don't matter. Just be yourself. Okay, go.
I think open-minded.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't just mean that with regards to diversity and inclusion. I mean that with regards to self-development, self-analyzation. Like, you define who you are, so don't put limits on yourself when you don't have to.
I like that.
Yeah.
And what makes you miserable?
I'm not allowed to say that word on YouTube. But I'll give you a hint. It's on the ticket in November.
Woo! We just got political real quick. Go! What makes me miserable? Feeling unwanted.
Oh,
Mm,
Yeah.
sure.
yeah. Lack of control. I
Oh
think.
God, yes.
Yes.
Well, and what makes you happy?
That one.
My family, and obviously not just my blood family, the people who are family because they're so close that you could call them at 3 a.m. and say, I need a pickaxe and a shovel and a tarp, and they'd be like, cool, we'll figure it out as we get there. The people who are in my life who make my life important because they're there and they're part of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of the wonderful information that you guys got to share with us today.
Thanks for listening to us drone on about our passion.
Always.
And so with that, we wish you all to be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.